104.5 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball. Yes, I know it's cold outside. Yes, I know we've been complaining about the Knicks all day, but good news. Like a ray of sunshine through the window. Our buddy Buster Olney joins us. Buster, how are you?
I'm doing great. Getting ready for spring training. It's only a month away.
I know, and just hearing your voice, I feel like there's like a baseball diamond somewhere that just started. They just started playing ball. So, Buster, we go back to 2014. You didn't cast a vote for the Hall of Fame then, and you're still not going to.
Yeah, that's right, and I never will again. I think I basically, at first, the first year I didn't do it, it was because I felt like that I couldn't apply the rules fairly. It's a kind of a thick conversation, but long story short, because of the ballot limit of 10, and because they're all the steroid era candidates have been stacked up, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, Rafael Palmeiro, I literally was leaving guys who I thought were Hall of Fame worthy, whether it be Curt Schilling or Mike Messina or Tim Raines, off my ballot, and I realized that their voting percentage was going down because I was casting a ballot, even though I thought they were Hall of Famers. And, that was one of the big reasons. And as time has gone on, I think more and more that writers shouldn't even be involved in any of either the Hall of Fame voting or even the awards voting. I think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's our job to make news, but to follow the news.
Where do you think the shift should go then? Should it be ex-players voting? Who should be involved in that process of selecting Hall of Fame members?
That would be the Hall of Fame's problem. If an issue to come up with, and I don't. And look, it's an idealistic stance. It's never going to take place. I know a lot of writers really like that, being involved in that. They look at it as being an honor, and because of that, the voters will always do it. I'm just moving forward, choosing not to do it. I just don't think it's something that we should get involved in.
Wow, it's almost difficult for me to continue on because you are my guy. Like when I think of baseball, like any big baseball question I have, I ask Buster Olney. Now I'm afraid to ask you who should be in the Hall and who shouldn't.
Well, I can give you an opinion on that, just as you guys can, but I just don't think we should be involved in the process. Look, my feeling is, and all the ballots I cast in regards to the steroid era candidates, I think we should just pick the best players because we'll never know exactly who did what. I think that thousands and thousands of players, major leagues and minor leagues, were using PEDs, and because the sport didn't deal with it, and I think a lot of people share blame for that. The union leaders, the dirty players, of course, the clean players who didn't say anything, media members like myself who did a terrible job in covering this era, baseball management. And, no matter how you want to assign specific percentages in that pyramid of blame, the bottom line is the sport didn't deal with it, and out of that came a sport that was absolutely filled with performance-enhancing drugs. And I don't think we can suddenly say, well, that era didn't happen, and we're going to pick out a handful of players who we're going to demonize over it. I think you just set it aside and pick the best players of the time, and that includes Bonds and Clemens. I also think, this year it looks like Jeff Bagwell will definitely get in, Tim Raines will get in, and it looks like Ivan Rodriguez is going to get in on his first year on the ballot with Trevor Hoffman and Vladimir Guerrero, probably, the two guys who might just miss.
And if all those guys get in, they rightfully deserve to get in. But the real storyline I've been watching is these guys like Bonds and Clemens and others who were guys who were associated with the PED era getting more support from voters. What happened? Why are they getting more support now than ever before?
Well, I remember talking to Levack about this. I thought all along that Mike Piazza's candidacy was going to be the tipping point in this whole conversation because it's pretty clear the reason why he had to wait was because a lot of voters thought that he used PEDs. And with that in mind, once he gets in, I think a lot of voters are saying, you know what, if Piazza gets in, and this year Jeff Bagwell, who's been held out because of PED suspicion, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to focus on picking the best players. And, to your point, the polling for Clemens and Bonds has gone from something like 35% to this year, it looks like they're going to get about 62 to 64%. And once you start getting up into that range, it starts to become inevitable that you're going to go across the finish line. I think it's right. I think that, when you talk about those players within this context, they were the best players of this era and I think the Hall of Fame should have them in. Now, I also have thought for a long time that they should put whatever information about PEDs is available on the plaques themselves.
Okay.
I don't think that'll ever happen, but I think it'd be a good idea. And let the patrons decide what it all means.
Buster Olney with us right now, 104.5 The Team. So, Buster, this other guy that's not in the Hall of Fame, he definitely didn't do PEDs. The only roids he was on, he might have been sitting on. Why isn't George Steinbrenner in the Hall of Fame?
You got me. I don't understand, and I talked to someone who really a great baseball historian, and I asked him about what his view of the Hall of Fame and who should get in, and he put it quite simply. I thought it was perfect. Can you write the history of baseball without mentioning that person? And I think you can't talk about baseball from 1973 to the early part of the last decade without talking about the influence of George Steinbrenner. I mean, my goodness, he became a national figure. I wrote a column about this that really, and I mean this absolutely free of politics, George Steinbrenner was Donald Trump before Donald Trump was Donald Trump, right? Where
right.
He was the one who had the commercials, national beer commercials, where he said, you're fired, talking about Billy Martin. He hosted Saturday Night Live. He was he really was someone who generated a cross-section of non-baseball fans, brought them into the sport, and obviously had a huge influence in the way the economics of the sport are done in terms of investing in free agents like Reggie Jackson. And like him or not, you can't tell the history of baseball without putting George in the Hall of Fame.
I just pictured Steinbrenner as president and got real worried. And I love him, but yeah,
let's not go down that road.
Buster, one of the great things you've been doing to kind of satiate my need for baseball, you've been ranking the players per position, and you put Cespedes as maybe the best left fielder in the game, but then you put Brett Gardner down at 7, which is a very high ranking, a very good ranking, and it led me to wonder, is this the year, because it seems like at least 3 years now we've been wondering every year, is this the year he finally gets moved from the Yankees to another team?
I don't know if they actually will move him, because it was interesting, the way that I generated those lists, talk to evaluators, email scouts and text scouts and say, hey, who do you think are the top 10 players at this position or the top 10 players, top 10 teams? And Gardner got put in a lot of lists. And what was interesting about that is, as you mentioned, the Yankees have been trying to move him, and they just haven't gotten that much traction. They haven't felt like they've gotten good offers in return, and yet he is valued. Now, I do think that we have to, put left field into context, and I wrote about this in that piece, that it's amazing how, when we were growing up, even as soon as 10 years ago, as recent as 10 years ago, left field was one of the premier positions. It really isn't anymore. When you look at the percentage of home runs generated by players at that position, more and more teams are looking at that as a spot where they look for defense and they look for platoons, that sort of thing, and not necessarily, the Barry Bonds type they're going to run out there 162 games. And that's part of the reason why Brett Gardner was ranked pretty high. I will tell you that when I've talked to other people with other teams about why is it that the Yankees are not getting a lot of return on Brett Gardner, the answer is that, okay, he's a good defensive player. He's still a good hitter in terms of getting on base, but the base running tool, the stolen bases, that's just not happening anymore. And because of that, I think that some teams have looked at him as a potential investment, decided that the price is just too high.
More likely to move off the New York team before the season starts, Brett Gardner or Jay Bruce for the Mets?
Jay Bruce for the Mets, because I do think at some point the Mets, who have been asking for a lot of return, are going to probably come to grips with the reality that in the current market, with so many corner outfielders available, DH types who are available, that you're not going to get a lot of return for Jay Bruce. And I actually think that there's an opportunity there for some team to make a pretty good deal for a guy who puts up good numbers. Where on the other hand, I think the Yankees, they've gone over and over and over with teams about Brett Gardner, and they get back very similar responses from all of them.
Buster, what happened with Jose Bautista? It seemed like he was going to leave Toronto. Now it seems he's going to go back to the Blue Jays. Why were other teams not interested in him?
Well, he's 36 years old, and he's coming off a year in which he missed 46 games. And Derek Jeter once said, and I think it was right, that you reach a certain age where no matter what happens, if you have a slump or you go into a bad spin of any kind, everyone starts thinking about age. And that's the case with Bautista. He also was one of the free agents who's tied to draft pick compensation. And because of the injury, because of draft pick compensation, I think a lot of teams' feeling was, you know what, we are not going to take a look at him. I think, he's a guy who still is really good offensively, typically very high on base percentage and power, and that's why it makes sense that the Blue Jays would bring him back. And you know what? I know probably from his perspective, he's thinking, great, I was hoping for $150 million, and I got far less than that. He should look at it as, you know what, I have a chance to make more money than David Ortiz did in any season in his career.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
That's ridiculous. But hey, I wish those kinds of things on Toronto, so it's all right with me. Buster, it's almost here. You get to listen to my crazy rantings about my Yankees soon, every week.
Well, and the good thing about it is that I always know they're true. If they're not going well, I can count on you to look at the dark side, and if things are going great, you've already assumed they're going to win a title.
Hey, listen, I've already started the "Bring Me the Ginger" chant for Clint Frazier. I'm ready. Buster, we appreciate you helping us get ready for the Hall of Fame and everything else, and I hope you're enjoying what little downtime you actually get. We look forward to talking to you every week soon.
Always great talking with you.